Okay, week 13. We're at the end, which is just crazy how fast this has come along. So today's class is actually a much smaller class relative to, there's no new content. I do want to actually go through something about communication and writing. It might take 20 minutes or so, but this is really more of a look back class and then a look to next week's presentations. So just a couple of things, if you'll notice, some of you are logged in as, I'm just mute my computer here. Some of you are logged in as under the staff tab. So you'll see you're either a panelist or an organizer. And the reason for that, basically what I did is I went to the go-to and I wanted to add all of you to be beyond just attendees and prep for next week. So I discovered there's actually a limit. So go to, just so you're all aware, you're an attendee or you just can listen, ask questions. If you're a panelist, that means I can make you present, but I discovered that there's a limit as to how many panelists I can have. So I said, okay, fine. So I threw the rest of you in as co-organizers. So everybody on this list here can take control and do crazy stuff if I'm presenting. So don't do that to me, please. But all of this is in prep for next week. So after I go through the couple of things I want to go through, we'll do questions if there are any about that final presentation. And then I'd just like to test with one or two of you as to just, I'll give you control, share your screen, give it back, because that'll be kind of the mode that we're doing next week. So let's, what we'll do is let's just jump over back to here. So I made this week as a previous review, and last year it was a strike shortened week, so we didn't have this class. But I was debating on what to do, and a lot of what we've covered is I don't want to reiterate anything. We've gone through a lot of items. What I want to touch on the presentation piece is communication and writing, and just some tricks on when you're conveying what you're conveying next week, and just the importance of a communication skill when it comes to the world of BIM coordination. But again, as I've done each week, if we do quickly look back, we've had 12 weeks. For me, it's been a joy being able to convey my ideas and my thoughts, and I hope it has been received on your ends. Week 1, BIM overview. Talked about what the BIM process is and what it isn't. And I always make reference to those myths because, in my practice, BIM is Revit, BIM is for architects, and BIM is for buildings are 3 myths, and BIM is too expensive, really. 4 myths that just crop up all the time. And it's really in the dialogue of, no, it's not, and this is what BIM actually is, and it's not more expensive if, you start giving all your conditions. There's a lot to that, and it all starts in that ability to build trust and to communicate, which we'll touch on a bit today. Talked about client requirements, which are just, for me, the cornerstone. Without knowing what you're doing, there's no point in doing it, and clients are just becoming smarter. I presented at the building show this week in Toronto, used to be called Construction Canada or Construct Canada. And one of the questions were precisely that. What do we do with our clients? How do we get them to be more aware? And then I just started talking about those agencies that have that awareness. So the clients hiring BIM teams to set BIM parameters, to set needs, to set wants, and then literally force the entire supply chain of the project to deliver. And we have to figure out how to do it. Alberta Infrastructure, Government of Canada, Department of Defense, Department of Procurement, Metrolinx in Toronto, City of Ottawa Transportation Group, UK government has been the forefront of this. Singapore has been forcing this on their public projects for almost a decade and a half now. So there's a lot of major agencies that are calling for it, and then minor or smaller clients will follow suit. If you know what the requirements are, we then talked about the BIM execution plan, the document by which we apply. We've got templates, we have standards, here's the LOD matrix, so who's modeling what and when, how developed are our modeled components, depending on who's authoring them. What are your BIM uses? Why are you doing it? What goals are you trying to meet? And how do you temper your goals? Make sure you know what's being done. And then assess each other. Great. Do you all know what BIM is? Do you know what the IT requirements are? Do you know why we're doing what we're doing? And all that's documented. Got into software. Really, week 4 was debunking, BIM is Revit. Well, no, there's building civil plans. There's a whole host of authoring tools. None of them are right. None of them are wrong. It's the collection. Whatever makes up that solution is what gets put on the project, and it can all be made to work. Part of that those assignments were the complexities of how this stuff comes together. If I give you an all Revit project, if I give you Revit and EcoSim, if you've got SmartPlant and CADWorks, it's all BIM, but there's complexities on how these things talk to each other because of the multiple vendors. We then got to collaborate. We've got to share. Doesn't matter what we're doing. It doesn't matter what project. Just the other day, I was telling somebody that it's been maybe over 30 years since you've been able to run a project off of one computer with one person, right? And that's because 30 years ago, there weren't computers everywhere. But the second, all of a sudden, you needed local networks. Then you needed multiple offices. Offices had to talk. Then enter external entities, enter the cloud. And what are you sharing? Is it work in progress development, content for sharing, or published deliverables for consumption? And that wide range, WIP, shared, published, local, WAN, cloud, any combination thereof, various design authoring tools, all of that gets put together, and we need solutions. And then we had the assignment on that, which was my favorite assignment. I hope you guys all enjoyed the assignments. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed marketing. BIM uses. I do all kidding aside, basically those diagrams are things that I do every single day when interacting with this stuff in the industry. BIM uses, we talked about the possibilities of what we could BIM and why. We looked at potential deliverable requirements, deliverable makeups, and then all of that comes together when making an overall technical solution. You can do anything if there's value. You can do anything to meet a purpose, to meet specific goals. You've got to select software. You've got to share. You've got to know what you're delivering. You've got to know your modes of delivery. You've got to know why you're doing it. Then we stepped back and said, well, why are people afraid? So we talked about kind of the professional responsibilities for architects and engineers, why there's that duality between designers and contractors, why is there friction? Why aren't we all just simply working together? Why is there that fear of liability and negligence? And when is it placed? When is it misplaced? How do you protect yourself as a designer? How do you bring trust and make sharing information just second nature? We then talked about modes of project delivery. And I keep stressing integrated project delivery as the ultimate, this is what we want on every single type of project. It'll just make the world a better place, but we're not there. So we have legal barriers. We have contractual barriers. So to try to address that, there's in Canada, in the States, in the UK, there are contract appendices that focus solely on BIM to try to identify in the contract what we're doing and why, and who's doing what and when. That can be contractualized. Therefore, there's nothing to dispute. Therefore, we can move forward regardless of the mode of project delivery. That's the idea. Then I brought some case studies to the table, just looking at projects, small to complex, building and civil, building, civil, and plant. And we focused last week a little more on the BIM use workflow diagrams. And, to try to reinstigate or just revisit the concept that no matter what we're doing, there's always a process. BIM is a process. BIM is a collection of processes. Whatever the phrase you take, if we say we're going to do something, no matter what, you're going to be asked, how are we going to do it? And if we can't convey the how, you can't draw the how, if you can't convey an understanding of what's going to happen, most likely it will fail. The bulk of my work, I can't say I've had a project where every single project member was fully cognizant with all aspects of BIM that there wasn't something to convey. So there's always going to be the instance where you need to portray what has to be done in some form. And that's what those workflow diagrams are about. And then we're here. So in the course of those 12 weeks, we had the 4 quizzes and the 3 assignments. And, you know, I've just kudos to all of you on the work done on the assignments to date. I've found them to be quite impressive. And now we're, you know, prepping into next week. So next week, last class, final presentations. Just to remind, so really, let me just go back to, I think it's under the course info. This guy here. So we have just 2 items left, and that would be the final exam and the final presentation. Okay, so what do we got here? 25% of the grade is next week. Kind of scary. It's all good though, don't worry. And 15% is the final exam. Final exam I'll have open for, I think it's 3 weeks, or okay, I shouldn't speak. I should just actually look. Final exam I will have open at the end of next week's class for 2 weeks, so that it's done by December 17th. A lot of it is true false. It's actually easier than the quizzes. I hope you find it easier. So hopefully you just really breeze through that. That's how I designed it for. I really hope it's easy from your perspectives. And then the presentation will be all next week with the delivery. Okay, let me just go back to this. Everything else has been completed to date. And yeah, so we're just in the presentation and the exams, which are left to do. Okay, let me go back to week 13 here. Where am I? Weekly, there we go. So this week, as I said, a brief look back. I didn't want to get into any detail. You know, we have all the videos, everything you could possibly need there. What I wanted to do, where's my week 13? There we go. So, first one is the course feedback. Algonquin has asked everybody to do this. So I did pop it open. I've got 2 completed of 33. These are 100% anonymous. So I just strongly urge everyone to do this, because it helps and it makes a difference. And it conveys, you know, I'll answer your question in a second. It makes a huge difference for us because it allows me to augment and modify the course. And based on the feedback last year, it did help to change how we did things this year. So I do have a question. Let me pop this open. Sorry. From Harsh asking, can we get the correct answers for the quiz? So I don't want to actually share them, but what I'll do is I'll actually walk through the answers, if that's all right, because we do have time. Let me briefly do that. So I'm going to unshare my screen just for one second. Just want to make sure I get to the right location here, because I don't want to share the marks, but I can show the quizzes. So question details. And I believe this will keep everything anonymous. Let me just make sure what pops up here. Okay. So yeah, that looks fine. So let me reshare my screen here. So if we quickly look at the quizzes, so quiz 1, so which of the following are most important to succeed with BIM, collaboration and planning? And it's actually showing the breakdown of the answers too. So the analytics are kind of interesting. Which of the following is one of the most common basic BIM uses? So design review is a basic BIM use. Bit of a trick because obviously they're all BIM uses, but the basic one was as I conveyed. The analogy when conceiving of BIM, I spoke about BIM as a cookbook, was one of the analogies I used. What could form part of a project's BIM goals? Linking to analysis, point cloud, 3D printing are all applicable, so all of the above. Which BIM use focuses on sending models directly to manufacturing, fabrication? What of the following are possible uses for BIM during construction? And it would have been all of the above. Bit of the trick here, clash detection, very typically thought of as a design, but this is used heavily during construction, especially when modeling temporary grade or modeling temporary works or comparing temporal clashes. Which of the following are common software for design and constructability review? So this was an interesting one because I threw in CAD, building authoring, civil authoring, pure design review. And that was why. And it's interesting, when I saw this, I said, okay, this is an interesting deviation here because, you know, you can argue, yeah, we do design review is in Revit, but Revit is building BIM authoring. So it's very specific on how we conveyed it. Whose responsibility is it to create the as-built BIM? It depends. But this was very intriguing because that's either misconception or myth is that it's the contractor or it is the architect engineer, but it is neither. It has to be defined on who it is. Which of the following scenarios must BIM and asset management support each other? It could be all of these. And how do you successfully model assets within the BIM models? So interesting breakdown here as well, but it's BIM as an assembly of assets. So you focus on the component and the required amount of data. So that was the first quiz. I'll quickly go through them all just so you guys see. And obviously this is being recorded. So, just use this information, just as an awareness and hopefully to help with the final exam. But obviously this can't get out. Obviously this is confidential. So question details, quiz number 2. Okay, so I'm resharing again. I'll just hit the audience view to make sure you guys can still see. Where's audience? All right, no, I'm sharing. Okay, yeah, you guys can see the screen. Okay. Project BIM lead engaged from the beginning, right? The BIM lead needs to influence which of the following? Everything. All of this was an all of the above. The BIM lead could semantically be called what? Again, another all of the above. So and again, this was a misleading one because in the industry, I was trying to convey that these terms, although not BIM lead, often, go to the architectural lead. Well, okay, but are they the BIM lead or not? And there's a misunderstanding. Rock on. That's when you think a question's way too easy, when everybody gets it. Which level of development is defined as roughly aligning to design, and that's the LOD 300. BIM use, how BIM is harnessed to achieve a goal. And this was a critical, very important for me, right? It's not the goal itself, it's a use to achieve a goal. Right? So it was interesting that a couple picked that one. Which of the following is building BIM? Rock on. I've got to make that question harder. Which of the following are civil BIM? So I like that. So this here, keep in mind, these are the Bentley products for civil, and that's the Autodesk product for civil. Which of the following are plant? This was, so this was CADWorks is plant, that's GIS, that's building, and that's civil. So that was pretty cool. Which of the following are not a common component for Autodesk and Bentley? And which of the following is not a common component in both Autodesk and Bentley? So both can do all of these, only Revit syncs to Central. EcoSim does not use Central. Civil Tool uses Autodesk as AutoCAD as a platform, Civil 3D. So that's good. Remember, ArcGIS is Esri, so it imports AutoCAD. What plant tool is able to read specs from multiple vendors? That was awesome. A good bunch of you got this. So that's what is a little distinguishable between open plants. I have no clue why the text is showing different size here. All of the above, BIM collaboration does not refer to, these are all what we call information technology, not BIM collaboration. WIP shared published was defined in BS 1192 originally. Best document ever, you should all read it. What is a centralized database from a BIM perspective? Multiple users feeding or pulling from a single central repository. So that's good. What's a federated database from a BIM perspective? Rock on. Which of the following poses the greatest challenge when collaborating across multiple entities? So this is interesting because all of these could be challenging, but it's sharing the Revit centrals across WANs or across multiple organizations. And that's live Revit WorkShare. So still a challenge, but we're getting, with honestly, Autodesk BIM 360 design, it's kind of a happy spot. Which of the following could be used to sync Revit central models? All of the above. All of those are possible. Okay, let me go to quiz 9, week 9 quiz. Statistics. Sorry, I have to keep on hiding because the first screen that shows up are everybody's grades. So, okay, reshare. So, what is the legal concern regarding BIM deliverables? All of this. So, use of digital information, duty of care under tort law, and the extent of liability. That's our concern, right? And I can remember, I keep saying, rightfully or wrongfully, that's what we're all concerned about. And I always challenge that. What are you going to be liable for? Dead silence. Not many people can actually answer that, but that's the concern. Which of the following is not part of a CAD BIM data turnover? So this was very clearly way too easy, but that's okay. And it's actually interesting because, and I guess we talked about that in the deliverable that week, week 7 or week 8, that oftentimes the data deliverable involves this. So good job on that one. Which of the following is best to consider when pricing the BIM lead role? Client requirements and project needs. Best consider. And it's always tough when I say it, when it's a question like that, I understand. Which of the following methods could be used for existing conditions modeling? Each of those are good answers, so it was all of the above. What's the primary direction of various BIM software vendors in the industry? Build systems focusing on connecting teams throughout the project's life cycle. That's the direction. That's the goal. Okay. Which of the following is the responsibility of the client? Making the relevant information available. So validating the work performed by the contractor, that would be the consultant. That's my role as architect. Which of the following is responsibility of the consultant? All of the above. Which of the following statements are correct? Copyright remains the consultant's property regardless of whether the project is paid, whether the project is executed or the payment is received. Doesn't matter if payment's happening or not. Projects that started on copyright is copyright. It's governed by professional law, period. And there's a lot of misconception that copyright goes to the owner. So I don't know if you're, who owns the model? Well, the owner wants the model. Good for the owner. Copyright of the architectural design, copyright of the engineering design, that goes nowhere but with the person who's governed. Then that's us. That's the designer. Which one of the following is a BIM standard form of contract? Very good. All of the above ones, they all apply. We reviewed this one as part of our one of the weekly discussions, but all 3 of these are. Wow. Yeah. Which one of the following statements is correct regarding the model element authors described in the IBC's BIM contract? Each author grants a non-exclusive license for the other participants to use. Okay? Non-exclusive. I model it, I'm the author, but you may use it. The IBC BIM contract appendix aims to define which of the following, all of these things. And if all of these things are defined, what a happy, happy project will be. All right, stop sharing, and I'll go to the last one here. Where are we? Number 11. Which you all just finished, which is awesome. Okay, details. Okay, so here, which of the following is an example of a formal classification system? All of them. Which of the following classification systems, okay, I got to speak slow. Which of the following classification systems attempts to merge aspects of the others? That was the vision of, or is the vision of OmniClass. Which, maybe this question is too hard. How could BIM models be harnessed for project specifications? So scan data to assemble specs in a library and perform a first run edit. So remember we were talking, it would never do final specs because it can't. And this is interesting. And again, maybe the wording messed this one up here. It can't do final specs. So it can only scan, it can see what it scans, sees components, sees metadata, goes to a database-driven spec, identifies, so you need a door, grab the door spec. The door has these 3 types, so remove the other 4 types. If I see hardware metadata, all right, keep that hardware, delete the rest. But it's not finished, that's just a first cut. If I had to do that manually, I would do exactly what I just said. Grab the spec, delete the ones that I don't have. There's my first cut spec, usually done at about 60% design. Once we get to the next phase of design, I've got a lot of work to, well, I have work to do, depending a lot or a little, to actually get that spec to final. So, which of the following example of BIM-fed spec tools? All of them. Which is the most common type of BIM model where spec constrains what can be modeled? Rock on. I think I hounded that quite a bit, but yeah, it's that spec-driven plant tool. In a plant model, the rigid spec data governs which of the following deliverables? Yes. Good job. Good job. I like that. Which of the following building software were used in a lot of the project examples? So I tried to show some from all of the above. And those were the examples I showed in the project examples. We talked about these guys, but in the examples, I only showed examples of those. So it may be a bit of a trick, I apologize. What was unique about the LaSalle Causeway? The high LOD. That was a crazy one. Eglinton Crosstown, the delivery into MicroStation was a very specific, required that crazy workflow that we had to accommodate. And it was fun, sort of, I don't know. Which of the following were IBI developed applications? All 3 of those. And which of the following were showcased solely on BIM for interiors? And that was that kitchen renovation. It was just an interior project. So those were the quizzes. Again, if you want to hear the video again, hear me describe through those quickly, that'll just give you hopefully some insight. But as I said, the final exam, it's not a reiteration of those questions. I think if I remember correctly, it's 100% true false, but it's pretty close. Okay. So now we're at 1:30. I want to take, as I said, the course eval, please do it. I think you have until the 21st. Awesome. So it's weird. Algonquin said, try to get the students to do it during class. But, if you want to, I just want to encourage you to do it. If you've already done it, great. If you want to wait till after the exam or till after the presentations and say I'm good or I'm bad, it's all good. But, hopefully you get a sense of how I am and what I've brought to this course for you all. The final exam, I really tried to make it as easy as I can. And that final presentation, you've seen how I've marked all the assignments. So, show up and have fun is the message. But we'll talk on the final exam, we'll talk on next week after this. I want to hit these two very quick presentations. And it's because someone last week, I can't remember who, said, when we're presenting, do we all have to speak? because not everybody's comfortable speaking. And I took that to heart. And I was talking, I had all the BIM coordinators at IBI in the room yesterday. And I asked them all, I said, so if I drop you in front of any director and tell you to convey an idea, how would you feel? And half of them in the room said, I'd rather you be there with me. And I said, okay, but that's not good. Because I said to them, I need you guys to be able to have the confidence. That's all. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing next week. So first, there's the group dynamic. So you're never alone. It's never all about the single person. So the first 3 assignments, you did it. You delivered to me. I reviewed it as if I was your receiver, your stakeholder, your project manager, whatever. For me, part of the fun of this, and whether you find it fun or not, I understand, is to say, great, here's 4 of us working together, 4 different solutions from week 5. Okay, now we've got to pick one. Brent gave feedback. Now we've got to augment it if needed, or we pick one of the 4, and then we move forward. And then we've got to present against it. And that's, for me, the important thing. So communication, and I thought some of these were kind of interesting. I hope you can get it on time. Will you help me? Completely not listening. And I see this all the time. All right. Let's say make sure we get work finished doing before we start the other thing. We need to do this. Yeah, whatever is basically what we're saying. Just imagine the way these conversations are happening, right? And then you've got I want to thank you all, or one big awesome team. You're all part of the mission. Okay. So you can see the concept, the difference in how things are phrased. Okay. So remember, while I'm talking about this, we're digital. You guys have never seen my face. I could turn on the webcam, but then I get signal degradation. So that's a good excuse. But you've never seen me. It's all digital. You're going to be presenting digitally to me. So the words, what you say, and what you put on that screen, and what you put in your assignment, in your BIM execution plan, that's what's conveying your message. Okay? So the 3 C's, clearly defined, carefully delivered, committed to mutual understanding. So always be clear. Okay? And I'll see even just in practice, I could tell, or when you're having dialogues, even in your other classes, you can see when something is explicit and you say, I understand, versus there's rambling and it just doesn't make any sense, right? And, when I write emails, and I learned this, because I remember 15 years ago, my managers would say to me, Brent, that was an awful email. Well, what do you mean? It's great. And now when I look back, oh my goodness, some of my emails were just, I don't even know how I would write those. So be careful, be clear, be careful how you write, and write it in a way that you're committed to ensuring that your recipient gets it. Now, the benefit of this course, you're going to be delivering to me, I get it. But when you get and you're going to a project manager, an engineer, an architect, an owner who's never heard of BIM, who's worried about finances, a little bit afraid of liability, rightfully or wrongfully, not knowing what all the project needs are, and then you've got these tech people coming in saying, do these things you've never heard of. There's a lot there. And these 3 C's are so important, right? You want meaningful connections, improve your teamwork, and make decisions. That's the other thing, decisions. Sometimes in our industry, nothing happens. You have meetings, you walk away. What are the tasks? Nobody knows, because everybody's focusing on trying to understand what's being said. Nobody knows what has to be done or what the outcomes are. Okay? And that helps us to solve problems. So be prepared to communicate. Reading people empowers you. Reading people is far more difficult digitally. But that's one reason why I actually enjoy delivering this class digitally, because in the real world, unless you're standing in the one office, unless all of your stakeholders and team and everybody is in your one office, you will have digital. You'll have phones, you'll have webinars, you'll have whatever, and you're not going to be flown all the way around the world every time there's a conversation to be had, period. It's just not going to happen. So it's very clear. Know your emotions, right? Facial expressions, if you're on the webcam, even if you're just speaking. So even with us, I can tell, like when I was going through those quizzes, where I was rambling or getting stuttered or trying to do it too quickly. It conveys. Understand what you're trying to convey. Your emotions speak through the words. Hopefully, in the last 13 weeks, you guys would say, got a bit of, wow, Brent gets really excited and passionate. Brent really likes this stuff. If I conveyed to you, Brent thinks this is boring and, Brent's just doing this as a chore, then I failed, because that's not the case, right? So hopefully the way I've delivered virtually conveyed some form of emotion. I don't know, right? So just think about that. And we want to avoid communication issues. So I thought some of these are good. This is the last slide of this one, because there's not much to say on communication. In IBI, we do courses like this where, it's kind of maybe a 2-hour thing, and we actually do verbal dialogues live in person to try to interpret how people convey. So all of those images about how somebody reacts to you, what you're saying, we do that live. But when you think about this, barriers, language is tough, especially if you're from different countries. But we have to work through that. It's all good. So sometimes that makes a lack of confidence, because you're worried people won't understand what I'm saying because of how I'm saying it. And that's why you go back to the 3 C's. Be clear, be concise, and just convey your message. Convey it in a way that you want somebody to understand. Noise. So we're going to test some of the technicalities of when I transfer presentation in a bit. When we do this next week, if everybody is on, so if you're not in the same room and so your 4 group members are all on the webinar, I will have 4 people unmuted. So it's up to you guys to mitigate that. You're presenting to me. So if one person is speaking and there's noise in the other 3 people's areas, they've got to mute themselves, manage their mute. There's a bit of technicality, but just respect that noise hinders communication. And I'm giving you only 10 minutes for a specific reason, to make sure you're clear, concise, and focused. So you don't want to spend 2 minutes of the 10 minutes saying, can you please mute? I hear background noise. It happens on calls all the time, and it's a distraction. So once you've gotten through all the, please, can you mute? Does it work? Okay, we're good. Oh, now we've lost half the time, and no put down. So a put down being, negative criticizing, putting somebody else's ideas down. Respect everybody. If you're not interested in what you're saying, it'll convey, and it will convey in your words. Okay. Disability to communicate, or disability technologically, whatever that realm is, will impact discomfort with the topic itself, right? So hopefully the 13 weeks have built a comfort level, I hope, and my other professor colleagues. Hopefully we've all done something to help build this comfort level. And we can honestly say from the class last year, like the first semester is harder, right? A lot of you are introduced to the subject. I'm not involved in the second semester, but what I heard was that the second semester was just much more awesome, because you've already seen the class, you've gone through it, you've seen the types of courses. So project definition and deliverables too, they flow right into it because they went through my class. All of the second term classes, everything just flowed, and the comfort was greater. Distance is tough, right? So we're doing this by distance. So we're going to have to be extremely diligent not to let that be a barrier. Okay. Again, back to the 3 C's: clear, concise, and convey. Too many questions. So if you're conveying something to me, I'm not going to stop you every minute. What do you mean? What do you mean? Tell me about this. Tell me about that. It derails you, derails the confidence in the presentation, and it results in not a good experience. So I won't do that. Other people, you're going to be presenting to me, 4 of you. There's going to be 30, my math, 27 or 29 others on the call in theory. Everybody hopefully will be on the call. But yeah, so there's other people there. Don't let that be a distraction. And then time. And I'm ending with time. 10 minutes. And I'm doing that just because in the real world, that's what we got. We were in front of a client this week in California, 30 minutes max. At the end of 30, we had to be quiet. Unfortunately, I wasn't there. I was here in cold Toronto. But yeah, we were virtually with a project that we won, but we had literally 45 minutes done. And they pulled the plug. That was our interview. Not 1 second more. And part of the reason for that is there's fairness laws. So especially for public agencies, I know we didn't touch on this in the legal, but fairness. So if they say you have an hour to present, but they give us, oh, Brent, yours was pretty good, you can have an hour and 15 minutes, and I win the job, the losers could actually sue the clients for breach of fairness. And then in theory, a judge could strip me of the award and give it to one of the others because fairness laws were not followed. So an hour is an hour. For you all next week, 10 minutes is 10 minutes. Partly because we only have a 2-hour class. So technically we're going to have 80 minutes of presentations next week. So we're going to make it work. So verbal communication, rock on. Then there's, where did it go? Then there is business writing, written communication. So this one I'll be very, 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 very quick here, but I just want to convey. So everybody did awesome. I'll keep echoing that. The assignments, everything was conveyed. Some of you, I commented where, you may have written things you may not have had to write. Okay. So, and I do it like not, obviously it's not, oh, I'm going to dock marks and stuff like that, but it's the concept that, you need to be concise, because as an audience, and I've seen this with my CEO, project managers, I put something in front of them. They'll say, yeah, Brent, is this a very techie thing? Like, what are you trying to tell me? So all of a sudden I stand back and say, okay, let me start with a diagram. A picture paints 1,000 words. Convey the message. Okay. If I had more time, I would have written you a shorter letter. Think about that. That's a great quote from Winston Churchill. It's not quantity, it's quality. You have to convey the message. So when you're doing the presentation, the PowerPoints, again, remember 10 minutes. So, look at what's in, so this final assignment is fill out the BXP and make a PowerPoint about the project. So the BXP, put the information that needs to be there, drop in your diagrams, don't add extra stuff, again, because it's just an assignment and it's a fictitious project. If you think something's worth putting in, awesome, do it, but don't add stuff for the sake of adding. Okay, that's one main message. But then in the PowerPoint, one of the errors last year, a couple of the teams, they just had some slides that, picture this. Where is this guy here? Sorry, I went right by it. Okay, picture this. Here's your project requirements. So if you're on project 2, I in no way, okay, let me cancel that and I won't click. I in no way need a slide that tells me about this. Okay, no. And I mean that very clearly. And last year, what they did is, they copied this onto 1 or 2 slides and then they walked through. We all know. We know what this says. Okay, so that's one of those examples where it's just giving information we don't need. So you're conveying a message. Our project is X. We're going to do this. We're going to use this tool. We're going to share this way. This is the complexity we're going to have. This might be the challenge, and this is how we'll resolve it. What do you think, Mr. Project Manager? I say, damn, sounds pretty good. Okay. Or how do you look to it? Then that's where we might engage in a bit of dialogue. That's the presentation, all right? I don't need, one team last year actually copied every section of the BXP and put it into the PowerPoint. Don't need any of that. I have the BXP. You're going to be delivering that. So readability, right? Make sure what you put in there is readable, okay? From my point of view, the reader. So I'm the reader in your final presentation, as I was in your 3 assignments. Is it clear, concise, well formatted, accurate? I'm not too worried about humor. I'm not happy that that's in there, but yeah, so whatever. Consistent, structured, very clear, pictures or diagrams, etc. We've got a question here. What do we got here? Okay, all right. Just not an actual question. Okay, cool. So where was I? Yeah. So pictures. I like how pictures in there. So from our perspective, it is the diagrams. Just imagine the week 5. Imagine if that week 5 assignment, I said to you, absolutely no diagrams. I want it all conveyed clearly with written text. I think marking that would have been terrible. I can't even imagine what it would have been like for you guys to do that. Pictures speak 1,000 words. So critical. The decline of the reader. This was interesting. So if we have 50 hours, and that's nice, 50 hours of leisure time. I'm not sure I have 50 hours, but on average, that's what we do. And there's reading. Okay? So think about that. Think about what you do on your off time and how much of it you spend actually reading. Oh, no, sorry, reading books, reading printed. So they're saying 14% we spend reading something. You know, I'll read the news on my iPad. So we do read, but not a lot. Pictures, videos, other forms of stimuli speak 1,000 words. The goal of writing: effective words, use only the words you need, and make every word do something. And I like that. Be very clear, very concise. That first one, and I've noticed that not with you all on this call, but everywhere. The never-ending sentence. Something because something, which led to this, that did this, and who did that. So, whoa. Make a statement, you know, make a paragraph, beginning, statement, end, state. Okay, get rid of redundancy, repetition. We don't need fluffy. And actually, omit fluffy, I'll say I struggle. So think of this. I've born in Canada, lived here all my life. I feel very comfortable speaking. I never did well in English, ever. And it wasn't until third year university when my prof finally said, Brent, your problem is you're not writing intelligently. You use all this fluff. And I wish somebody would have told me that when I was, in grade 8, grade 9. But no, it wasn't until university. So I would always, I would do good in math and I get like a 70 in English. And what? I never understood. And then when that prof sat down with me and he said, look, and it was about some building. I was doing something with Roman architecture. And he said, tell me what you were trying to say in this paragraph. And I said, well, I was trying to say that the building was A, B, and C. And he goes, well, why did you write 20, 30 sentences when you just set it into 2? So again, we don't need the fluff or irrelevant or artistic or dramatic. Just make the statement. The project has this issue. The BIM goals are this. Not after careful consideration, we think that the value, blah, 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 the BIM goals will be. By the time you hit the goals, you've lost your audience, right? Irrelevant details, unnecessary words, et cetera, et cetera. So very important. And the other thing is, where possible, use lists, bulleted or numbered. And this is such a true thing that, I think I have an example. No, okay, maybe it's after. So my BIM goals will be, and if you just list them, design review, comma, visualization, comma, whatever, they're just buried in the sentence. My BIM goals will be, colon, or my BIM uses will be, colon, and then you start bullets. All of a sudden, there's a conveyance, there's an importance, and they're there. And I don't know why psychologically it works. Okay? Poor grammar is the reason for so much bad writing. And no, grammar is not the problem. Okay? It's all these items. Clarity. Think and write what you think. And just don't embellish with words. Just keep it very simple. And just remember, you're all here for a reason. You're all awesome. You all know what you want to say. You all know what this is. You've done the work. You've moved through this course, and it's quite impressive. Just stand up there and say, this is the project, this is the issue, this is the concern, and this is what's going to happen. As a project manager, they'll love you. Okay? Always ask, who's your audience? What do they already know? So that one and that's a bit of a trick. So I don't want you to write it to me saying, well, Brent already knows it, so I'm not going to give him anything because he knows the answer already. No. So pretend the audience is your project manager. Okay, I am simulating a project manager. And you've got to say, what questions might they have? And that's always a challenge. So you always got to think, whatever you put in that PowerPoint, I guess, and it's hard because you've got to be a little on your toes there. What might I ask you, right? So if you say my BIM goal is 1, 2, and 3, and I'm going to use these 6 uses, well, Brent might ask, what about this use? Or what about this goal? And just, you might have an answer, or the easy answer might be, yep, okay, we can definitely consider it. So, just keep that in mind. Okay. 1 second. All right. Tell your audience why this stuff is important, and different audiences require different things. But I'm your audience. Really, you're conveying why things are important. Clear language. Be organized. Don't put a lot of stuff everywhere. Just be very simple. Examples that make sense, and just keep it smooth. Keep it flowing. Don't make these PowerPoints insane. Okay? You already have you'll have a diagram, right? You've got your stuff from week 5. You'll be refining it, whatever. You'll already have something that speaks 1,000 words in the picture. Talk about that diagram, add in whatever else. Take the most important aspects of that BXP. And that's part of the challenge here. When you fill that out, like, look, the BIM execution plan has 12, 15 sections. What's important? What do you want to put up there to talk about in 10 quick minutes? Because it will be quick. Okay. Just as an FYI, this requirement for plain language, and I think I first heard this in the UK, plain language documentation. No legalese, no technical jargon. State what you're going to do. And public agencies are being forced, because some of the biggest complaints, I think the most recent law, are the insurance companies. When you have car insurance or home insurance, what's covered, what's not, what makes sense. Plain language, plain diagram, plain conveyance. If I'm buying insurance and there's a flood in my house, is it covered? Well, I don't want to have to read 20, 25, 30 pages to figure it out. So now when they renewed my insurance, the concept of plain language, there was a nice chart that gave an overview. And then if I wanted to go dig into the jargon to read the particulars, I could, but there was a plain language conveyance of it, which was great. So clear language checklist. You organize useful headings, using right pronouns, the right voice. Here's something I notice a lot: active versus passive, or present versus past. Are you, when you're building the presentation, the project will do X, or are you saying we will do X? And you can make a decision. Is it we as the team, or are you going to write about the project in the third person? But don't do the project will do X because we are going to do X, and then the project will do, and then we will do. Make a choice. Keep it consistent. Right? Simple things like that. Organize your content. So, know what your chronological discussion is going to be. So, you've got a BIM execution plan. So that goes chronologically from what the project is about to what you're going to do, to how you're going to share it, to some life cycle potentials, to how you're going to quality review and deliver. Kind of the chronology of the BIM execution plan. Should make sense to follow that in your presentation or not, but have a decision, right? Your headings on your slides are usually good, right? But not too much text, right? A simple heading, simple dialogue, convey it in words. And look at this example here. The regulation governs disaster assistance for services to prevent hardship caused by fire, flood, or acts of nature that are not provided by FEMA or the Red Cross. Okay, that's a sentence. This regulation governs disaster assistance that consists of services to prevent hardship caused by fire, flood, or acts of nature, and is furnished by a provider other than FEMA or the Red Cross. And that's what I said, the power of the list. That's it's a simple change, kind of has almost everything that's the same, but the after just resonates better because all of a sudden your brain is saying, I've read the simple 6 words, and now I'm in a list. And now the list, okay, maybe they could have consolidated that a little better, but the fact that it's now a list means my brain is just switched. So I'm not reading this long sentence. I'm now applying the list to the first 6 words, and those 6 words have resonated already. And that's a huge difference for your audience to understand, right? Clarity. Imagine this, if this was one big sentence. Clarity is established through, and it just starts writing. No, I now have the list. Establishing clarity through all of those. And keep your verb tenses clear. So there, I've seen that a lot. I know it's hard often when your English isn't your first language either. But if you're telling the story, the project will use the following software, or you're going to say the project has used. So here you're probably saying will use. It's in the future. So if you start by saying the project will use this software, its BIM goals will be. Or are you going to use it present? The project is using this software. The BIM goals are. The deliverables are. So you've got to make a decision and just convey it consistently. Don't use future, present, and past all in the course of a 10-minute presentation, right? This here, would you rather read what's on the left or on the right? And I'll tell you, for me, it's the right, because first, it's not one big clump of words. It's broken up into the side by side, but I also see lists. And as I said, lists will hit me because under metrics of success there, I can read those first 3 lines, and then my brain is conditioned that all the bullets that follow, are related to those first 3 lines. And that's a massive mental difference. It really, really makes a difference. Be accurate. Truthfulness of your fact, get them right, understand or be cognizant of the 5 W's, who, what, when, where, why, and then which one is the most important. And we talk about the what often, but we often forget the why, okay? So, and this is a bit subjective. I'd say the 5 W's are all very important, but in the context of this assignment, what's going to be done is fine. And oftentimes a presentation might convey the what. So it gives you time to talk about the why, potentially, okay? So BIM uses. What are the BIM uses? Design review, visualization, design authorship, clash detection. 4 BIM uses. List them on the slide. Great. What goals do they achieve? They achieve my deliverables, clash-free design, something else. Great. That's a very clear slide. You can paint, you can just do it as a list, you can do it as an image, whatever. But now why? Why those uses? Why those goals? Why does that help the project? That could be dialogue. You don't have to write sentences on slides, but when communicating, it's all about really that why. And if the why is understood, then often it isn't questioned. Tone of writing and tone of speaking are all very clear. Be professional, positive attitude, and you'll be fine. Okay? No negative constructions, so double negatives. It's try to be personable, formal, informal, hard, soft words. It all depends on the accuracy of or the importance of what you're conveying. You can be very direct, you can be very subdued, but just as long as the why is getting out and you're doing it in a very positive way. Okay? Do it with confidence. You all should have the confidence. And go through the writing process. This is think before you write. A quick brainstorm. This doesn't be a big diagram or anything. Think of it, plan what you're going to do, the hot pour, right? Start to lay things out, read it, rewrite it, read it, rewrite it, etc. Organize it, get it ready. And it sounds like a rough thing, but even when you're sending an email, right, it might just be a couple of quick sentences. But the biggest mistake I say to people, if you're going to write an email, don't write it in the heat of passion and press send. That's the hot pour. Don't do that. Okay? Think about what you got to write. Okay, I've got to write everybody an email, do their work. Great. How am I going to write it? Write it, and then reread it. And then you start to guess in your rereads. How will it be interpreted? Did I phrase that right? Did I make that too harsh? Are they reading a negative tone, an evil tone, or whatever tone? Can I make it more productive? Can I make it more supportive? Whatever the case. And once you've done that, then send it. And it's always better. And here's an example of rambling. In this paragraph is the demonstration of the use of good style in writing of a report. Right. This paragraph demonstrates good style in reports, or good style in report writing. This paragraph demonstrates good style in report writing. Simple. Okay? So just keep that in mind. And again, this isn't an English class, so nobody's going to be marked on how you convey, but hopefully this just helps a little bit with just confidence on what's going to happen next week. So with that, next week, what we're going to do, and for those who came on a little later today, so I see we have 21 out of the 30 of you. So the first thing is, this is a bit concerning. I want to make sure that your teams are on. So because I'm not there in person, you guys are going to have to let me know if there's any challenges with any groups. But basically next week, when you guys come on, you'll see some of you are attendees and some of you came in as panelists or organizers. I have the ability to promote to an organizer or a panelist. So what we'll do, like Luciano, if I can use you as an example right now, you are showing as an attendee. So I have the ability to right click, promote you to a panelist. And now you show for me, where are you? You show as a panelist. Now, if I unmute you and you unmute yourself, you should be able to speak.
Oh, hello, Brent. Yeah, now I can speak. And also it shows me a small icon. I think that it's to show my screen.
Yes. So do you want to do that? Just hit show my screen, just briefly.
Wait.
Make sure you have no bad stuff up on your computer.
Yeah, no.
Cool. Minimize YouTube, minimize Netflix. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, wait. Webcam, full screen mode, audio. Wow, I'm looking for it.
Yeah, so if I unshare, let me see, what's the best way to do it? So if I unshare my screen, and maybe if I do, so if I right click, I got to make you a presenter. Let me do that.
Okay.
Right, now, there we go. Beautiful.
Yeah.
So let's say next week when it's your group's turn, if you're the one who's going to run the presentation, I would do exactly this. You're unmuted. I would go and unmute the others in your, or what I'll probably do is unmute everybody, give everybody the ability to speak, and then everybody just mute who's not talking. So you and your team will be able to talk. One of you will share your screen, run the PowerPoint, and we would be good. Okay? And then when you're done, I believe as an organizer, I make myself presenter and I take it back like I've just done. And then I could pick somebody else. So if somebody's already a presenter, let's go to Pablo, if you're okay. Let me unmute you. And Pablo, if I make you a presenter, you should be able to now share your screen. Beautiful. So this is the technology. Actually, I was afraid of a technological chaos, but yeah, this is exactly how it's gonna work. And then if I take it back, I'll make myself presenter.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the mode. This is how it'll happen. So what we'll do next week is I'd like to just start, and I'll put you back on mute, Pablo. That's cool.
Yep.
I will just go down the list. And as you can see, like when people are unmuted, you get that bit of background noise. So I'll be able to manage who's muted and unmuted. And if somebody is on the attendees side, so like Maya, for example, I can unmute you, and Maya, you should be able to speak now.
Yes, I'm able to speak. Can you hear?
Awesome. Yes. So this is what's important, is that as long as at least one person in your group is, as a presenter, able to share their screen, and then the other three of you, regardless of where you are as attendee or presenter, you'll be unmuted, and then you'll be able to do the presentation.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll mute you again, Maya. And, with this sort of thing, if it goes completely smooth without any complication, I'll be very impressed. As I said, last year there was only 1/3 the number of students, so there was only 3 presentations. It was a lot easier to manage. But we'll do this. I'll run the timer, so I'll keep and as I said, it'll be 10 minutes strict because again we only have the one class, and I want you guys to build this so that it really is the best of what you think needs to be said in that 10 minutes time frame. And what I haven't decided yet is what to do. So I've said, notice in the presentation, in the assignment here, I'm explicit. The group will be graded as a whole, and the same mark will be entered for all group members. So what I'm assuming, okay, and I have to assume this to an extent, you're all working together, and however each group has effectively managed to make it work together. If one of the group members don't show up here next week, so if a group of 4 but only 3 of you are presenting, we'll kind of like at the start of each, I'll basically kind of do a roll call. So we'll go to, I've got all the groups here. So we'll just go group 1. I'll just make sure that the 4 of you are there. And if group 1, if these 4 are not on the call, I'll just have to adjust the mark accordingly, because obviously the intent is for everyone to be active at the presentation. So if you look at this assignment, the rubric has 4 sections to it, and 1 section is solely on the oral presentation. So if somebody doesn't show up, how do I see that again? Hold on. I'll go here. So if somebody doesn't show up at the presentation, I'll just have to remove that portion of the mark on the rubric here. The rest, I'll assume I'll keep this. To convey these. See, communication problems. Even I'm struggling to stumble here. So these first 3, summary, analysis, overall, are the same rubric that went for the rest. Those will be marked based on what's submitted, and then the verbal, kind of like, these 2 kind of go together. The overall and the verbal are kind of tied because the verbal influences the overall, but then what's submitted will be those. So I'll just have to manage accordingly based on that. But just, and the reason I'm dwelling on this is because I don't think we've ever hit all 33 people on. So whatever the case is, if somebody needs, if somebody's not able to connect, but you want to organize all the group being in one room, if it makes it easier, whatever the case is, I just, I'll have to do that level of assurance when you're presenting on whether or not everybody's there or not. That was an example of communication rambling. I hope I got my message across. Okay, so with that, any questions or comments about the assignments, final exam, or anything previous? you guys want to leave early today. That's what it is. That's okay. As usual, if anything comes up, Ozzy, you've got a question? Here, let me unmute you.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
Hey, good. How are you? Yeah.
Yeah, I had some problems with my earphones, so I want to check the other one just in case for next week. Can you hear me clearly? Okay. Because before I was.
Yeah, I can hear your voice gets muffled. It's almost like your mouth might be too close to the microphone, maybe.
Yeah. Now is it better?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Okay.
Okay. So that should work fine.
Yeah. Thank you.
No problem. Harsh, you're funny. He writes, please be easy. I will be easy, man. This is, trust me, like I know this is, well, I don't know how comfortable everybody is, but that's why I want to just put you guys to the test. Sahil, if that's how you say your name?
Yeah, perfect. I just had one question. So would the report only be fine, or do we need to create a PowerPoint presentation as well?
Sorry, will what be fine?
So just the BIM execution plan, would that submission be fine, or we need to create a separate PowerPoint presentation as well?
No, so both, right? So the group needs to submit the BIM execution plan, but also the PowerPoint. And the PowerPoint is all you're going to go through on the next week.
Okay, thanks.
No problem. And yeah, it'll be fun. That's what I say. Just have fun with it, man. Because it'll be, as I said, your careers, depending on what paths they take, you're going to be put into uncomfortable situations all the time. So hopefully it's comfortable. You guys have listened to me for 13 weeks now. So, Any other questions? Okay. If something comes up, email me, and I've tried to be as responsive and as quick as I can. And yeah, next week I look forward to it. And yeah, everybody have a great weekend. Thanks for your participation today, and we will talk at our last class next week. Have a good day, everyone.